Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Victor and Andrea.
Episode 3, and you've already developed a podcast voice.
Do you like that? Hello, everyone.
My mom is notorious for when she answers the phone, remember when you're little and they're like yelling at you and then she's like, hello.
Hello. Yeah, you're like, where did that sweet voice come from?
Where did that come from?
I do that when I call the station. They answer newsroom and, hi, is such and such there? And people are always like, yes, random listener. And
Mine
I have to
goes
tell
up
them no.
multiple octaves.
And I just
I'm
go,
like, hi.
hey guys, it's Victor. And then they finally, oh, okay, yeah. And then they don't care as much.
Yeah.
So today we're talking to Dick Gabriel. You just stopped and looked at me like, yeah,
All right, we can edit that part out. Yes.
No, we're going to leave that in.
No, we're not. I wasn't ready. I didn't know where you were going. We're still working out the kinks of this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk more about what we've been up to, but today's the first, if you're listening in real time, today's the first day our first episode went out. So that's been interesting watching the...
It's been really cool. We have a few clicks, mostly our own. So
I believe it's basically just me refreshing the page over and over.
Widen the audience. So if you listen to this, please share it with your friends. We would certainly appreciate that. And I will say that this episode is going to be one I think people are going to enjoy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because it's not just us, and two, it's someone who you've heard from for years. You hear him tell other people's stories, but now, kind of hearing him talk about how he got into the business is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, Mr. Dick Gabriel.
And just the number of jobs that he has.
Still, to this day, he is a jack of all trades, which many of us are. You kind of have to be to make yourself marketable in this business, but he really does do it all. And it's not just sports. I think that's one thing people don't realize. He produces news, and he's really good at it.
The 10 o'clock show you watch every day, Dick is the one producing that.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting. I expect he will be 95, trying to get down to the sidelines to talk about the UK games.
Because
I don't see him ever stopping. I think he's one of those people that, work. He just loves it, and it drives him. So, yeah. So, take a listen.
And a lot of it, apparently most of the things that have happened to him have happened by accident.
Happy accidents, which I feel like is a lot of us kind of, how did you get here? Well, one thing.
Such is life.
Yeah. So, here you go. I hope you all enjoy this conversation. And, we'll talk to you when we're done. Hello, everyone. We are here with Dick Gabriel. I'm Victor.
And I'm Andrea. Great to have you guys back with us on the podcast. So, again, we're going to continue to learn more about the people who bring you the news. And in this case, it's a guy that brings you sports and the news. A man of many talents, Mr. Dick Gabriel.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So, how did you get started in the business?
Well, in this business, in television, in broadcasting, it was quite by accident. In journalism, it was because of my dad, who actually died when I was 8 years old. But in learning more about him, my mother, at some point, told me that he wanted to be a sports writer. And I think I was in 8th grade, and I found out I enjoyed creative writing. And when she talked about that, she said, yeah, because you get to get in the games for free. And the one thing I remembered about him, he was a big sports fan.
Yeah.
And I love sports, and I'm still waiting to get a call from the St. Louis Cardinals to play third base. I've almost given up.
All right.
But anyhow.
That's like my WWE championship reign. It's coming.
You too.
So I got to thinking about that. That sounds pretty good, Sports writing. He went on to be a very successful mechanical engineer. He was a real whiz. None of us were in the family. None of us had the math skills or whatever. Don't you want to be an engineer like your father? Nope. But I did enjoy the notion of being, so I pursued that. And I went to college with that thought at UK of being a sports writer. My dream job was being a columnist for the Courier Journal, and I wrote for the Colonel. But I accidentally got into radio, and I was sitting next to the station manager at the press table at UK games, and they used to broadcasting. Well, they actually taped the games with some kid who was an announcer, but he wasn't really very good, and they didn't put him on the air. They just taped him. Well, he got mad and he quit. And so one day I'm sitting next to the station manager, and he's just sitting there, no equipment, no announcer. I said, "You're not doing the game?" He said, "No, I lost my announcer." And I wasn't even looking at him. I was watching the game, and I just kind of muttered, I've always wanted to try something like that. Call me. So I auditioned, and I got the job, and I broadcast games for 3 years for the campus radio station. And when I got out of school, newspaper jobs were beginning to dry up thanks to the onslaught, glut of kids who wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein. I trust you know who those people are.
Yes.
You'd be amazed at how many people don't
I
who are in
wouldn't.
journalism.
Yeah, that's just.
But anyhow, so the best job offer I got was from WVLK Radio right here in Lexington, and it was mostly sports, a little bit of news, and all kinds of stuff. I ended up doing ball games and a talk show and all that stuff, and did that for almost 5 years, and I really enjoyed it. And then, long story short, there came an opening here at KYT for the sports manager job, and Ralph Gabbard, our late great station manager, he and I were friends, and he liked my work and liked me, and so he offered me the job, and I've been here, except for 5 years I left for IMG, ever since, dating back to 1985. Probably more than you wanted to hear.
No,
But
that's
No,
a
it's
great
interesting.
story.
And what a lot of people don't realize too is just how much you do here, because in addition to the sports stuff, you also produce one of the shows.
yeah, I
How did
produce
that
the
start?
10 a.m. news because we're spread pretty thin here, as you all well know.
You have to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, so, and it's probably the least labor-intensive newscast of all of them. It's only a 30-minute show. But, local TV is going more and more, as you guys know, to almost wall-to-wall news. And it just seems like people can't get enough of it. So,
It's
Here
there's-
we are.
There's
Yeah.
more news and less people doing it.
Exactly. So there's a lot of repetition, but there's a lot of repetition on the cable news channels and things like that.
true.
So, but that's a challenge, is to make it look new, sound new. Excuse me. I don't think I've ever written for you, Victor. I've written for Andrea, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I try to
I
change them up a little bit.
Absolutely noticed. And I love anchoring
Yeah.
your shows. I really do. And I've told you that. That's not just for the podcast. That's true. Now, one thing I find interesting is that you were just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that.
Yeah.
So was there a learning curve, or were you just were you good?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, like all of us, you go back and look and listen to
You're like,
the
"Ugh."
First
yeah,
broadcaster.
and you cringe,
Yeah.
and I find old packages I did here, and that's the other thing. When Ralph Gabbard hired me, I said, "Buddy, I've only done play-by-play on television. I've never done anything else. I put a couple of pieces together during an internship in college at WHAS." And he goes, "Well, we can teach you that." And he was right. I tell young people, I say, "Look, you can train a chimp to work this equipment. It's can you do it well?" That kind of stuff, and it all starts with the writing. You can't train a chimp to do that, but you can train them to type, But anyhow, there was a great learning curve. But I was really fortunate because my first job in commercial radio at VLK, I was doing morning drive, 2 hits an hour for 4 hours, and I'd come split shift, come back in the afternoon, do a 5-minute sports show. And I was talking to the guy who was the engineer for the UK radio network. He said, "Oh, you're the new sports director. You could actually you've got something. You could be." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "If you were just a little more what?" He said,
Tell
"Well,
me."
bring me scripts and tapes." And he admitted to me he had a big ego and he liked to help people. And so I brought him air checks. And folks, what those are, samples of your work, and scripts. He specifically asked for scripts. And, buddy, he tore me to shreds. I mean, he would listen to a soundbite. "Why did you do this? Why didn't you edit it this way? Why didn't you cut it here? Why did you write this? What you do?" And, well, I had only written for print. I had never written for broadcast, and you know the difference. And so he just, when he was done, I could have walked under his door out. I'm like,
were
I
so
am
little.
so hopeless.
Beat down.
Yeah.
So much to learn.
But he told me come back in a month, and I did. And he's like, "I have never heard more improvement."
Wow.
Well, I said, "Well, Rick, I could go nowhere else but up,
You told me how awful I was,
Yeah.
but I bet you love that guy.
I did. Oh my God! And what it did was it taught me to listen for the mistakes and all that stuff. And it is in our line of work. Most people don't like watching themselves, but you have to.
You have to.
There's
You
also a
have to
big
w-
difference between someone telling you what you're doing wrong and you going, "All right, thanks," or you going, "All right, thanks," using that,
Yes.
improving, and then when
Yeah.
somebody sees that, they're much more likely to continue to want to.
You
got
gotta check your ego.
because yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's
Yeah, and I knew. I mean, it was easy for me because I'm like, what do I know? Nothing. The one thing I knew, though, and this is what I did when I got here as well, I knew that I wasn't very good because I would listen to the network people. And I remember when I first got started here, like, why do my packages stink? Why do my story, So I would watch, actually, I was in sports. I ran the sports department here for 22 years. But I would stand in front of the monitor at 6:30 and I'd watch the CBS Evening News and I'd listen. And there were times I would, take notes on them. And I remember one package I saw that ran about 1:15 had 7 sound bites, and they weren't disjointed. It was beautifully done,
Flowed.
and I thought, okay, yes, it did flow. I said, okay, all right, now I'm starting to get it.
There's a story
you know,
there.
yeah, you know, and it's the writing, it's the editing, and all that stuff. And I love that process. That's the thing. You know, a lot of people see that as a chore. That's what I really enjoy. That's why I don't mind. I like writing for other people. You know, and so you know, and like I've done a bunch of documentaries, and somebody asked me the other day about, oh, that must be I said, no, I love that. You know, diving into the edit bay. You know, that's a big step.
Was brevity hard for you since you came from writing where
Yeah.
you have more time? See, that's what I struggle
Yeah.
with. I can talk all day
I'm
long.
the same way.
No, not you.
No,
Yeah.
stop. But I bet, especially coming from print where you
Yeah.
have time to expand on things
Yep.
and really get into things.
It was really hard, and then, you know, the more I did it, the more I got fairly, you know, good at it. And then I sampled long form. I started doing specials and documentaries. That's where it bites you.
So once
know,
you get that taste of being
oh,
that
exactly.
time and just being able to tell a story like that.
Yep. And
Talk about those documentaries because you've done some really great
Yeah,
ones.
we've done some good ones here. I mean, the top of the chart was the Adolph Rupp documentary we did in '05, which was 2 hours long, no commercial breaks. And I had already, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I dump everything in and it's just cutting out, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, after about the third version of that, it was starting to take shape, and I went up to our sales manager. I said, okay, how much commercial time do you need? How many minutes? How much? This is my final edit. I need to just start hacking and chopping. And he said, don't cut anything. I said, excuse me? Yeah. And he said, let me see if I can sell it to a title sponsor so we don't need commercial
Nice.
One
breaks.
person can pay for the.
So I heard the
entire
angels
thing.
singing, you know. Yeah, you know. And so it worked out. I mean, what they ended up, but what was interesting was it was such a touchy subject.
Oh,
Rupp, racism, you know, that kind of stuff. Nobody wanted to touch it. They went to all the usual suspects in terms of the sponsors. Nobody, it's about what now? I'm good, no thanks, you know.
Right.
But so what they did was they passed the hat. And it was friends, family, former players. They all chipped in. They had a figure they needed to reach, and they did. And so it only took them a day and a half or so to come up with that. And so I ended up polishing it, but I didn't have to. But ultimately, though, if it's a 1 hour documentary, you know you've got about 44 minutes. Yeah. And that's usually what they are.
Oh,
and,
that just sounds crazy, though. Just 2 hours of uninterrupted.
oh, yeah.
But when it's a good subject, it feels like nothing when you're putting it together
Yeah.
and you fall in love with every part.
I
You're
wish
like, I can't cut it.
I know, and I wish I'd kept count of how many times I watched it start to finish, because I felt like I had
You
to
wanted
get
the flow too,
I
yeah.
had to get the feel for the flow, and you know, it couldn't, you know, maybe one segment here and there, but every now and then I just watch the whole thing, you know, and take notes and chop and stuff like that. But you know, the last two we did, I worked with Cameron Mills on documentaries about the UK national championship teams in the '90s. And we are going to do one on Calipari's, but, you know, you're talking about interviews with 10, 12, 13 people, trying to make sure they're all represented and all that
Highlight
stuff.
each person, give each person their moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
But it was fun. You know, it's a lot of fun. And we kind of have a little director's cut that we made available on the DVD, but, you know, it's a good process.
So let's talk about, right now, how many different jobs do you have?
Well, including this one,
Yeah.
including the podcast.
Yes, including this podcast, this one-time appearance.
Well, my day is this. I get in here about 6:30. I produce the 10 a.m. news. That takes me up until 10:30, of course, and then I start working on whatever projects. I'm essentially the special projects guy. So once I leave you guys, I will go and start working on. Actually, I have 3 in the air right now. We've got a football recruiting special that's going to air on the 19th of December. That's the new National Letter of Intent Day. We've got a special that's going to air on Christmas, a 1 hour year-ender kind of thing, best sports stories of the year. And then a bowl game special, which, you know, I'm starting to plot and plan right now, but we really don't know because we don't know where they're going. But, you know, we've got a general idea what we'll do there. So, yeah, and I think I had 3 in the air in November as well. So, but that, you know, I
Do
like
you still
that
do
stuff.
radio stuff?
And then at night, I
I was going to say, let's.
You never
well, I go
stop.
home for a little while, take a
Okay.
nap, and then I go and do a radio show from 6 to 8 on WLAP. And then, for instance, tonight I don't have a show, but there's a ball game tonight.
I was going to say,
so
games.
Yeah, that'll stretch into the evening, but that's the fun stuff.
So when do you sleep?
Well, like I said, I
nap.
become really good at taking naps in the afternoon. And my wife's a champion napper, so she was very proud of me when I started doing that.
Taught you everything you know.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit. I mean, I think one thing people don't know about us is what we do outside of work. Like, we've seen you. We know you for your sports coverage. But what do you do for fun? You fascinate me because you've told me stories about martial arts. You're very big into that. So kind of talk about that. I find that fascinating.
Well, again, accidental. I was sitting in the...
Everything's an accident with you, Dick Gabriel.
It is, I know. If I plan anything, I fail.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the newspaper office my senior year, and it was like first week of the year. And Sin Tae walks in. He was known as being a karate teacher on campus. And I think he recognized me from a column I wrote with my picture on it, which was a terrible photo. Anytime anybody recognized me, I'm like, really? That?
You're like, oh, please
Yeah.
say no. I don't want that.
But he said, I'll teach you for free if you'll write about it.
Wow.
And I said, oh, that's a
That's
good
an opportunity
column.
right there, yeah.
That's a good series or something. So I did. And I wrote a series of articles about him. And I thought, well, I'll do this for a little while. And when I started doing it, I'm like, man, this is hard.
Yeah.
This was work, yeah.
Why are my legs so sore? But
Did you have little kids running circles around you or anything like
no,
that?
there weren't. No, I took the initial classes were on campus, so it was mostly
Okay.
students.
Yeah.
So I kept bugging him to sit down for the interview. You know how that goes.
Oh, gosh.
Well, he kept putting me off, and it's not like he had planned it that way. He was just pulled in every direction. But when I finally sat down with him, I think I was a brown belt, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
It was
You know,
over by
yeah,
then.
I was hooked. Because I remember watching this one move. It was, for those of you scoring at home, shortcut of number 30, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that, so I'll never be a black belt. There's no way I can do that. Well, I learned how to do that. It's pretty simple, and I've taught people to do it, that kind of stuff. So I just stayed with it. And here's the thing. The more you're in it, the more you realize how little you know. And so you want to learn a little bit more. Plus, some of my closest friends have come from that. One of my dearest friends is a fellow black belt, and he teaches a great deal. And when we first met, we kind of sized each other up. I'm like, I know you. I know you. I've seen you. Turns out he was a journalism major at UK. We overlapped by a couple of years, but he was in the advertising sequence. And so we would pass each other in the stairwell, in the hallway, stuff like that, all the time. And the more we talked, the more we realized that's where it was. And coincidentally enough, he grew up about a mile away from me in Louisville. Never knew him in Louisville.
Oh, my gosh.
Different high school. But, yeah, so
Fate.
we've just been really close friends ever since. And, he was part of the group that went to China in 1994. We were roommates on the road and all that stuff. So, yeah, so that's I'm not as active in it as I used to be.
Or probably as you want to be.
Yeah, but it's still fun, and it's still a nice way. It's an interesting way to work out.
Now, I was telling Victor the coolest story, maybe of anyone.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to top this one.
Yeah, this is the coolest thing about you. And I don't even remember if you're the one that told me, but you had to go through a procedure. I don't know if it was really a surgery. What kind of procedure was it where you didn't have any anesthesia? No, nothing?
Yeah, I've done that a couple times.
Well, he says
A
it
couple
like
times,
it's no big deal.
They cut me open. They put their hands in it.
No. There was no cutting open. There was
But
two
you had
things.
to work,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah. All right, the first one was an MRI.
Oh.
And it wasn't an open MRI. It was when they slide you in the tube. And I looked at that, and I thought, I'm a little claustrophobic, and I didn't know it until then. I've never been comfortable with the thought of being buried alive, but,
Most people are.
Yeah, So anyhow, it was a knee injury and from karate. And they slide me in, and they said, are you okay? They hit the little speaker. And I said, yeah, Mr. Tough Guy. And then and then I'm like,
I'm not sure.
Then about 5 seconds later, are you sure? No. And they came running in and pulled me out, and they said, we noticed your body change, like right away. We do this all day, every day. So they were going to drug me. And my neighbor had one. He told me they had to drug him, so I knew that was a possibility. But I didn't like the thought of that, so I said, give me a minute. And my now teacher, Sin Tae's brother, Shung Tae, has actually been my teacher for most of my 40 years. And he is really big into the breathing and meditation, And so I said, let me give something a try. And when I nod, go ahead and put me in there. And so I kind of did. And it's just basically, it's almost like a light trance. And they slid me in there, and it, like about 45 minutes later, they pulled me out. And I was cognizant of it all for about the last 5 to 8 minutes. And then the other one was they needed to go down my throat, the GI tract with the fiber optics. They were checking my stomach for, cancer or whatever, thankfully negative. But they said, I said, am I going to need anesthesia? Because that night we had a UK basketball game we were televising back when KYT still televised games. And I said, I can't, I've got to work that. And because if they give you anesthesia, you're done for the day. Mm-hmm. They weren't completely knocking you out. And legally, I couldn't drive. So they said, no, you just have to sign some forms. And so when I got in there, they started to give it to me, and I said, whoa, and left hand hadn't talked to the right hand, so now I've got 3 or 4 people running in circles. But they finally got the right paperwork. I signed it, did the same thing. Doctor goes in, he's checking me out. And at one point he said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but it just relaxes you. I wouldn't do knee surgery with it or anything.
Right.
It made it sound like they were cutting you open, and you were like,
no.
I think that I might have romanticized this story in my own head.
Yeah.
Well, it's still pretty impressive.
Well,
You think about
it's
somebody going
awesome.
down your throat and being able to
Not
just
a comfortable
calm yourself so that
situation.
you're able to.
It's just a
go through
calming
that.
thing. But it's also, you can apply it to a lot of stuff. When you're sports or running or whatever, and
breathing techniques.
Yeah, when I had they checked my heart, I was having a routine physical, and one of the things they do is see how long it takes your heart rate to drop back down to normal. Well, I can make it drop like a stone, although I remember, I think it was the first physical I ever had, I did that, and they were marveling at, like, man, your age, and Well, come to find out, they found something in the EKG that turned out to be 2 massive blockages.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I've got 2 stents on board now, which they would not have found if not for that physical. Now, no, I did not use the technique. I had the drugs, yes. But I was really fortunate that they found it. Barbara Bailey's brother was my doctor at
He's
the
a
time,
doctor, yeah.
And he spotted.
He's a doctor for a lot of people.
I know,
here.
but he spotted the. And I bring that up because, folks, get yourself checked.
Yeah.
But he spotted it. He kept showing me the EKG, like the graph paper and this little.
Until he's able to read it into you.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay,
It means nothing to me.
yeah, exactly. Am I supposed to know this? But then they showed it to the cardiologist. I got a phone call, and one of my favorite stories, though, attached to that was, I told Clark's a big football fan, and I said, look, this coming Sunday, it was Sunday, not Saturday, is the Kentucky-Louisville football game. And you know what I do, right? I work the sidelines for the UK radio network. And he said, oh, yeah. I said, will I be able to work that game? He said, yes. And sure enough, I could, but I had a gunshot wound bandage on my leg. They went in through my femoral artery, so I had a little bit of a limp. So I'm coming off the field after the coin flip, and this was in '08. And here comes Rich Brooks walking out onto the field. And I thought, well, he's coming out to talk to the referee or one of his captains. So I kind of veer off to the right. Well, he veers off.
Like, what you doing, man?
Yeah. And he makes eye contact with me. I'm like, he's coming out to talk to me. And he walks out and he grabs my arm and leans in and says, are you okay? Someone had told him.
Oh,
and
wow.
I said, yes, sir. And he grabbed me again, looked in even closer. He goes, are you okay? I said, yes, sir, I am. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
And that is really nice.
So you all develop relationships
Yes.
with the people. I mean,
Yeah.
you interact with these people so often.
But somehow he found out. I mean, I knew that the athletic department knew because I was working at IMG at the time, and somebody must have brought it up at a staff meeting. But he's that kind of guy. And then about a month later, we're in the airport getting ready to get on the team plane to go somewhere, and his wife walked up and said, now, how are you? That kind of stuff. So, you appreciate moments like that.
That's really nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think I'll always like him from now on.
Yeah,
You
well,
know what I mean? When
that's
someone
what
tells you a story like that, you're like, that's a
They
good
went
guy
out of their
right
way
there.
to,
But it also, you asked me about other things I do, and that's one of them. And then the other thing is, when you just grabbed me, I was looking up notes for.
Not physically, by the way.
True. Cause
I politely
That's how Andrea's
requested
forcing
his
people to do the
I'd
podcast.
go-
Hey, put some
I'd
headlock
go
and-
right to HR over that.
We have HR.
I do a lot of stuff for the SEC network. So I was getting ready. I'm doing the volleyball at the NCAA volleyball this weekend, And I also do baseball games, so, it keeps you busy.
Did you play anything?
Well, not at a high level, no.
Mm-hmm. Just love sports.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I love baseball, and I tried to walk on to the UK baseball team. I made the first cut. But
That's impressive to me.
Yeah. Well, but I think it's more because he didn't see me.
You just snuck by.
You didn't stick out for any bad reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's funny. The next day, the coach said, "Oh, by the way, is anybody here getting financial aid?" Well, I had applied. We have any money.
I was gonna say we're all single parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I raised my hand, and they said, well, we can't keep you. We're all like, what? Well, the NCAA rule at the time was if you get any financial aid other than athletic, you're not allowed to play. I'm not.
So even if you're a walk-on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we all got up and left.
It's another sweet NCAA.
Well, come to find, it's since
right?
changed. It's since changed. But it was really funny. There were about 100 of us, and about 30 or 40 of us had to leave. Well, by dumb luck, many, many years later, I'm having a conversation with a Lexington High School baseball coach. You go to UK? Yeah. When did you? I was there when you were there. What year? He was in that walk-on group. He was the only guy to make it.
Really?
Wow.
And he hated it.
Really?
He said he went through all the workouts, winter, summer, spring,
but never got to play.
Never played an inning. Never got an at-bat.
Well,
only guy to make it. So I'm like, man, that guy did me a favor.
Yeah, seriously. It kind of worked out.
Yeah.
So I would ask you about, I guess, your greatest accomplishment in news, but I would say your family's probably your greatest accomplishment.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids are wonderful. They're my daughter is a special education teacher, teaches special needs kids at Paris Middle, Kate, and my son's a Kentucky State Trooper. And it's funny because before you all got here, and I'm divorced, amicably, and often had custody of the kids, and I'd have, this business that kids, I got to go to the office for a little while. Well, they loved it because at my house and at their mother's house, there was one computer. So you know what that means. And here, there were several. So they loved. They would ask me if they could come to the station because they each had their own computer to work on, and play games and all. Well, my son eventually started drifting up to the assignment desk. And at the time, I don't think we had a regular nighttime assignment editor. He would sit there and take notes on the scanner and walk up to producers and say, "You got a 1046 on New Circle Road. Thanks, kid."
How old was he?
Oh, he was probably 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
I wish he was still here. I read that sometimes.
Yeah, but no, they're good people. They really are. And we just had a grandbaby. My son and his wife had a grandbaby.
He was part of the photo of all the troopers.
He was.
Is that right?
Yes, he was one of them. And my granddaughter, was the youngest, aged 6 months to 8 days, and Cecilia at the time was 8 days old. 8 days old. And if you look at the group of the babies, she is by far the smallest.
Well, yeah.
She was very tiny. So, no, they're good people. They're good folks. But it's funny because Jack played football at Henry Clay and, was a backup, but he played a little bit here and there. And people always assumed he'd want to follow my footsteps. He did the in-house, closed-circuit TV announcements on camera at middle school and things like that. And he would grip for me and work with me. I worked with the SEC Radio Network for 15 years, and he was my runner, basically. I would take him with me to the SEC football and basketball championships, and as a bribe, as a reward for good grades, and it worked. And people just assumed, and you're going to be like your dad. Nope. He always knew he wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
And he wanted Metro, second shift in his cruiser on New Circle Road. But his second semester of his senior year at EKU, he drank the gray Kool-Aid, and the state police got him. And he loves it now. He's a canine, he's special investigations, and he's taken a scary amount of drugs and money off the street.
It attracts a similar type, because I was a police administration major for a year and a half. Yeah, so I went through a lot of that, and so it's kind of where the
it's a life.
Obviously, it's a different. That's the other thing it has in common.
It's like our
that
job.
is your life. Yeah,
it's a lot more dangerous, but it's a life. It's not just a job. And then Kate, when I asked her, what is it? She wanted to be a teacher, and wanted to teach special education, and I was like, now where's this coming from? Well, when she was a senior in high school, she developed epilepsy, juvenile epilepsy. And so that kind of gave her an awareness of special needs kids. And she began to help And I think she already was doing that a little bit, teachers at Henry Clay with the special needs kids. So that planted the seed with her. Now, she loved working, and she still does work TV broadcasts. Yeah. When Jack was maybe 8th or 9th grade, I think that was my phone, isn't it? Let me silence that.
Yeah.
How unprofessional.
As long as it wasn't us, then I would feel bad.
I know.
You're the guest. It's okay.
Our former longtime operations vice president, Mike Canterac, also produced the football and basketball games. And his stepson would bring his friends, and they would pull cable, which we call grips. Mm-hmm. Well, when he moved on to college, Mike turned to me and said, do you know anybody? I said, well, my son is getting into high school. So Jack did that for 4 years, and he got his buddies to pull cable and things like that. Well, then he moved on. I said, you're going to keep pulling cable once you go off to EKU? Dad, I got a life. so I turned to my daughter.
You don't have a life. Come on down.
Well, she was interested, and so, but she was nervous. She was nervous.
That's
and
funny.
It was funny. I mean, pulling cable.
That's just what's so neat, the access, though, being in the middle of it all.
Exactly.
I promise you I would find a way to mess it up.
But
here's easy.
It's so funny, though, because it was the first, they were actually playing Western Kentucky in Commonwealth, and she came running up to me halfway through and said, Dad, I'm going to do this for every game. I said,
awesome.
Well, we don't actually do every game, but, so the funny thing about that was she quickly realized pulling cable is not where she wanted to be. She wanted to be, doing more so she doesn't have to do this grunt job. So now she puts herself in charge of lights. So now she can tell people what to do and, that kind of stuff. And fast forward, she is now in somebody's Rolodex, and oftentimes, if ESPN's in town or the SEC network, she's either a booth coordinator for baseball. Don't think she does anything for football, but she is oftentimes the what we call the assistant director of basketball. She gives the cue cards and communicates with the talent. Dick Vitale once spilled a Coke on her. I mean, that's how,
That's awesome.
That's where she is, yeah.
But it is still
That
running in the
would always
family.
be my most interesting
He never
fact.
apologized, but you got a good story to tell, But
That was his apology?
yeah. But anyhow, no, she loves it. But here's the thing. She is not a huge sports fan. So I'll be up in the press box, and I'll be watching her, and she's reading something. I'm like, at halftime, I'm like, what are you reading? Just shopping in a catalog or People magazine or something.
That's hilarious, 'cause how many
Mid-court.
people would be excited to
Thank
be there
you.
to watch the game.
Yeah,
To be,
yeah. Mid-court, Rupp Arena. But she does a good job. Like other people, Sean Farnham
likes
from
the
the
job.
SEC is one of her favorites.
Well,
and
she doesn't get distracted either.
True.
that's
She can focus.
Yeah, but she is being a teacher. She's got that tone in her voice where she can
authoritative when she lets people know this is what I need done. and I
Exactly
need you.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nice. All right. Well, this has been fun. Dick, I believe
I
you-
knew you'd be an interesting one. You
Yeah.
fascinate me. The more I just get little nuggets.
Well, it's
from
nice
Dick
just getting
every
to
now
know
and then.
people and getting because basically what I knew of Dick was our interactions, and then what I knew of him on the radio and stuff. So it's kind of nice to get to hear the backstory.
Someday we'll open up to the closets, the skeleton closets here at KYT.
A Halloween edition.
Yeah, I anticipate we'll talk to people more than
WKYT
once. This is just-
skeletons.
yeah, you are our first. The first 2 episodes is just us talking to each other, which is easy enough. But talking to somebody else and letting them talk. Is
All
kinda
right,
nice.
let's see. Do you want to nominate our next person? Because we
Ooh,
don't really
yeah.
have any
Who
kind
should
of
we talk to?
process. Who do you think would have good stories?
Oh gosh. Who would I want to know more about? How about Ken Harvner?
That's what we said. Chief photographer Ken Harvey.
Chief
I said
photographer
that on my way
who
in here.
also had designs on a career in law enforcement. Did you know that?
I
I
knew
did
that.
not. I
He
did
sure
not know
did.
that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why he's still the only shooter who listens to. That means
To the
photographer.
scanners.
folks.
Photographer, yeah.
Yes.
He
We need to be very yeah.
listened to Scanner, yeah.
Wow.
So,
All right.
but
Well,
Kenny and I go way back.
Yeah.
I mean, he started here maybe a year before I did, and he was the first photographer who would, on the way back, like before we had a set sports shooter, he would shoot something for me, and he'd come back and he'd describe, and I'm sure he's done with you all, he'll describe what he got.
Which helps so much when you're writing.
Oh my
really
gosh,
does.
and when you're editing, and I shot it this way, this way, and this way, so if you wanted to edit it that way, that kind of stuff,
That
All
was
right.
a great
Hi,
idea.
how's it going?
I like
Oh,
that.
sorry.
All
we're in a
right.
public room. All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up. Other people need the room.
I know. It's officially, we're
That's
done.
what we call a hard out.
Yeah. Thank you so
As
much,
in
Dick.
get out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bet.
All right, Victor, what did you think? I feel like I know Dick pretty well already.
See, I didn't, so it was really interesting for me to hear all of that.
So
Yeah.
I knew he was going to be good. And I don't think he disappointed
Well,
at
he's
all.
so used to talking on top of that. We felt like we were newbies sitting here. Well, we were newbies
he does
sitting here talking with the
radio.
pro. Yeah, he has a radio show, so he's literally talking all the time. And, yeah, so it was kind of interesting just to hear how he ended up.
We just made our lives easier.
We did.
Let
That's what it was.
Interview somebody who can do it all on his own.
Which we'll see how that works out next week when we're going to do our best to talk to chief photographer Ken Harvner. Hit him
That's
up.
right. See, this is one of the other things that I think people are going to really enjoy. They're going to get to hear from people who you don't know on the news.
Yeah.
But I will say, most of the time, more people know Kenny when I go to stories because he's been doing this for so long. Then
Yes.
they don't know me.
And they know
literally
Ken's work.
him.
I guarantee you, if you watch the news tonight, you will see something Ken shot.
Absolutely. And he is honestly one of the nicest people I think I've ever met in my life.
He
The
is.
first time I saw him, I said, he's got the kindest eyes I've ever seen. He's it's like a Santa Claus twinkle in his eye.
Well,
and he doesn't disappoint.
He was one of the reasons I was excited to come work here because I knew I'd be working with Kenny when I was a photographer at that other station. You know, I'd see Ken out all the time. So I felt like, well, Kenny's there, so I think it'll be all right.
And I think I have a lot to learn about him.
All right. Well, we are
really
excited.
do.
We
I'm
look forward to
excited.
that. Thank you all so much for listening.
Bye.